Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and I'm joined today by the MCU's actor for Doctor Doom.
Wow. What an announcement.
Right hand to God, dude. I had something else written there, and as I started the intro, I pivoted and was like, no, you're going to be Doom today.
Wow. That's funny because sometimes I try and think of intros for you, and I almost asked if I could do one today, but I was like, I don't want to do that, But mine was going to be like something to the extent of, and with me as always is the actor who played Short Wolverine in the newest movie, Zach Armour.
Comic accurate height Wolverine.
Yeah, comic accurate Wolverine. Yeah.
Dude, we'll get into Deadpool later.
I know, and we'll get into the Doctor Doom stuff later, I'm sure. How's that for a couple of teases?
I was kind of using that as a segue for the first segment, but can I just real quick say I actually unironically loved comic accurate height Wolverine. I think that should have been the movie. Just let him be a little guy who cuts ankles.
I think, if they did that, that would have been nice, but I'm pretty sure that for that scene, I mean, it looked terrible, right? It was just like Wolverine that they shrunk down.
That was for sure the point, but I'm convinced if you gave us 2 hours of that, at some point we'd get used to it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, how we doing, Victor?
Great. How about you? How was your week?
Doing well. Oh my God, last time we spoke, I was going to Milwaukee for a concert. That ended up being the whole thing.
And I see you're healthy and unscathed, at least as far as I can determine.
Dude, so 2 things that were very funny to me. I got quote-unquote hurt in the funniest ways I've ever gotten hurt in a pit to date.
Emotionally?
Well, that too. Yeah, it was a hit to my pride. So I got out of there and I told Shyla, man, that was a show. And she was like, oh yeah, did you get hurt again? And I'm like, yeah, but not in the way you'd expect. So it was for a day to remember, right? And they're really good.
Was it a day to forget, Zach?
I wish I could, man. So the thing about a day to remember is they have like 9 or 10 genuine hits in the pop punk community, right?
Yes.
And then, but you got to fill a set list with like 18 songs. So for about 8 songs, they keep the energy up with gimmicks, which is really smart. They'll release balloons, they'll shoot off confetti, they'll say crowd surf on a crowd surfer like they're a surfboard. It's a good time, right?
Oh my God, I am appalled at how dangerous this is.
So anyways,
yeah, okay, just go on.
I'm in the song that I have no clue what it is. I'm not like the biggest A Day to Remember fan, I know the hits and I know, the things off the good albums, and that's it.
Okay.
They're playing a song where they throw toilet paper into the crowd. They've been doing this for years, we just throw
good
toilet
fun.
Paper back and forth, TP each other. Everyone makes a big mess. And like 2 seconds into them throwing the toilet paper in, my head, I don't have my full attention at the moment. I'm watching all the stuff go on around me, and I turn my head and I just get beamed right in the nose with a full roll of toilet paper.
Okay.
So it's got some weight behind it, and I was like, that kind of hurt. Like it felt like I got punched in the face.
It must not have been Charmin. It must have been like a cheap brand.
I mean, yeah, why would you pay for the good stuff? People are just going to throw it.
Yeah.
But it felt like I got punched in the face, but just had like 3 pillows in front of it. I was like, that was kind of soft, but also had a lot of impact.
Yeah.
And some people see and they laugh at me, and I'm like, well, that's not great. That hurt
that's like
cred.
That's rude as dude. And you would also think if toilet paper's flying back and forth, a lot of people are getting hit in the head with toilet paper.
You would think, but I didn't see
I
anyone
was thinking you've got to be ready for that to happen, kind of.
Right, but it's coming from all sides. I mean, This is a war zone, John.
That's what I mean. Like that's what I mean. When I say you've got to be ready for that to happen, I don't mean so you can stop it. I mean, like, you've got to be okay with that happening.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. So, same song. It happens not once, but 2 more times.
Oh, they're throwing stuff at you.
I get hit in the face with toilet paper like 3 times.
I'm not liking this. I don't like how you're being treated.
And then, so that was just kind of whatever. That was funny. But the show ends.
Wait, so do you think it was on purpose?
No, people had no way of knowing they were going to hit me in particular. But
you said someone saw and laughed the first time it happened.
Oh, yeah, because a dude just got blasted in the face with a full roll of toilet paper. I think, I would laugh if I saw it happen too. It's just the running joke that everything that can happen at a show eventually does happen to me.
Okay. So was that your only injury?
I mean, I wouldn't even call that an injury, but
well, that's not that bad.
Yeah. I tuckered myself out moshing for the first 2 bands. It was really hot, and I had to get a cup of ice from the bar, and I was just dousing myself with ice for a while and catching my breath because I thought I was going to throw up. But anyways.
Well, that does sound relatively unscathed. So I'll say a successful concert.
Yeah, I would say it was a success, but oh boy, afterwards, I was so dumb. Every time I've gone to Milwaukee, I'm like, I don't need to book a hotel beforehand. It's a big enough city. There's plenty of hotels. There's hotels in the suburbs. If I have to drive 20 minutes outside of the city and get a little Holiday Inn for $130, that's fine. I'm prepared for that. John, when I tell you I got out of this concert at 11 p.m. and until 2 a.m. was looking, and there was not a single hotel room within 60 miles of the city of Milwaukee. I was calling hotels in Chicago, and I was like, hey, if I get there in 2 hours, would you have a room for me for just a couple of hours? And they were all like, no. So me and Shyla and the friend that was
drove
with us,
home?
No, dude, we were going to do stuff the next day in the city. We were going to go to the beach and get breakfast and everything. We slept in my car at the airport.
Oh, man. That's just so dumb. I know. I can't believe that when you go out of town expecting to stay over somewhere, you don't just book a place beforehand.
I can't believe it either.
I can't believe Shyla wasn't on top of this, to be honest.
That was not my finest hour. The thing is, it's always worked out for me when I've done it before, specifically in Milwaukee. If I'm going to a real trip, a couple of nights, yeah, I'll have my hotel booked as soon as I can. But I just didn't think it was that big of a deal, and it clearly was. And we even, for a second, we went to a Days Inn that was $90. And I was like,
I kind of can't believe, did you guys just Google Motel 6 or something? Because motels, there's usually always a room available.
Well, that's the problem. So I went to a Days Inn, which was a motel, and I think people lived there. And we walked in and saw the room, and it was the most disgusting room you'd ever seen. Yeah. And we literally made the decision, let's get our money back. Sleeping in the car would be better than this. So,
wow.
I was dumb. It was dumb of me.
I love it.
Don't know what was going on. Milwaukee was popping.
It's not as dumb now that you tell me that you guys did have a hotel room, but it was just an unacceptable level room, and you couldn't find another place. That makes it a little bit better,
Yeah,
I guess.
And when I say there was no hotel rooms, that's a little facetious because
there's no hotel rooms maybe that are within a viable price point.
Yes. Yeah. There was another thing that we found that was $600 a night, and it was one king bed, and we had this buddy with us. So it was that's not really going to work either, and that's an outrageous price.
Yeah, that's too much.
And at that point,
it's in the car.
You're not even getting a full night's sleep in it. It's okay, we're going to check in at 2 a.m. and got to be up at 8. It made no sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, awesome weekend.
Yeah. What about you? You do anything?
As I texted you a little bit ago, I've been getting into tennis pretty hard. Bought a new racket. And then you think about it. It makes me feel better about my racket purchase because it's pretty expensive, but I'm incapable of getting into a hobby without like really going for it. And boy, it was like not even 1/3 of the amount of your potential hotel rooms. So, and I'll have it for years and years and years. So that's a good purchase if you ask me.
Yeah, expensive is
relative,
subjective. Yeah. It's like when I buy a $30 concert ticket and Shyla says we don't have the money for that, but then she says I just bought everything in my Amazon wish list. It's okay, I needed it for the classroom.
There you go.
I'm like, that's cool, but like that was $400.
Man, Shyla doesn't get her. I'm sure she has like a set amount of money per classroom, right? That she gets to spend on.
Oh yeah, and it's gone within like the first day.
Is it? Yeah, that stinks.
Yep.
Is she back at school before we get over to the Better Business Bureau?
So I helped. Me and Alyssa went with her yesterday.
Alyssa and I. Dude, it's not that hard.
Alyssa and I went yesterday.
Think of it like this, Zach. This is how I always learned it. Listeners, think about it like this. When you're talking about someone else, they are always more important than you are. So they get to go first. That's just how I learned it. I'm not saying that should be true, but that's the rule.
All right. For people I don't respect, I'm not going to follow that. If I'm not going to say
I actually respect
Hitler
that.
and me because Hitler's more important. No, John, I reject your notion.
Well, you wouldn't say that anyways. It'd be Hitler and I. So you wouldn't say me.
Whatever.
I mean, sometimes you would. You can cut this out.
Yeah, man. We set up her classroom with her, and she's got students coming Monday.
Nice.
What about you? When do you start?
We had a couple PD professional development days last week, and then students come on Wednesday. We're easy on these kids. Start them out on a half week on a half day. Let's go.
Soft.
I know it is. It truly is. Kids are soft. Okay.
Yeah.
Better Business Bureau. We're saving all the good stuff for the end. Dr. Doom and the boy, or not the boys,
not
and
the
Deadpool.
Boys. We were told, and we kind of realized it ourselves too.
There actually is some boys news also.
Is there?
Yeah.
Huh.
They're getting spinoffs and whatnot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've gotten off track a couple times in recent weeks, but we truly are going to give you a marvelous episode today with Dr. Doom stuff and Deadpool stuff and Spider-Man. It's going to be great.
Oh gosh. Okay. I did take very detailed notes for this issue.
All right. So let's get into it. Let's send it over to Robert Downey Jr. for a word from our sponsor. And we're back. And this week we're getting into Ultimate Spider-Man issue 125.
I was looking at the issue numbers here right before we hopped on, and it only goes up to like 136 or something on Marvel Unlimited.
Yep. So, John, that
133.
That is an annoying thing about the entire comics industry. When business is bad and they don't really want to cancel a series, they will reboot it and they'll give it a new number one issue, even if it's just a continuation of the story that was already going on, because issue 1 sells better every time than issue 134.
Okay, that makes sense.
Except when we get to that point in the podcast, it's going to be really confusing for us, because it's like, are we going to call it issue 1 or are we going to keep using the number that it actually is? I haven't decided
we'll keep
yet.
using the number it actually is, I think.
Okay, legacy numbering. I like it. All right, so this
Okay,
one...
well, that's good, because I thought that maybe they just didn't have these last issues on Marvel Unlimited, and I was going to have to spend money to get them. Well, we're already spending money, Marvel Unlimited, but more money.
You know what would have been more embarrassing than that? If I had been wrong this entire time about it being 160 issues.
And we've been saying it every episode.
That would have been hilarious. All right. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Stuart Immonen.
It would be better if we said issues 131 through 133 and issues 1 through 27 on our 1610.
Yeah, that rolls off the tongue.
That does.
Inked by Wade Von Grawbadger, which hold on real quick. I'm going to send a little love to old Wade Von Grawbadger. The other day I was reading a different comic, and I was like, wow, this looks really good. Why does this look so familiar? And it was inked by him. And I was like, huh, I've never really noticed an inker before that I like, but I think I like good old Wade.
I like Wade too.
Colored by Justin Ponzer and lettered by VC's Corey Petit. And you know what? I feel comfortable in saying also, we've read enough of his issues. Corey Petit is a good letterer.
He's been the most of them,
I
would guess.
Art to Bear did quite a few too.
Oh, Art to Bear, of course. Yeah, it's funny you brought up these guys in this episode of this podcast, specifically, because I specifically, when I was looking at the cover and you see the names, Bendis, Immonen, Von Grawbadger, Ponzer, I'm like, man, we've come a long way from Bendis, Bagley, and I can't remember who the third guy that was always there, but it was Art to Bear. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, it's just different.
Yep. The one holdover is Bendis, but
yep.
I will say he has also benefited from having a good team around him in both of those eras.
Yeah.
All right.
Not the snake Ralph Macchio.
As Jim Shooter called him in our conversation at Comic-Con. All right, so we start off on another 1 month ago flashback, just to remind us that this whole arc is confusing. And Eddie Brock wakes...
Thank you for saying that.
Because every time you think, oh, this is happening in present day, right? They're like, no.
And in the next issue, when Nick Fury shows up, I'm like, wait, are we back in the past? What's happening? When is this happening?
Well, and the funny thing about this is, so now, these issues come out on a monthly basis. We get to, through 4 issues of this arc, which means at a certain point, not only are you going back a month, you're going back a month from 4 months ago when this arc started.
1 month ago, which is really 6 months ago.
Which also doesn't make sense because this whole story is so condensed. At one point, Peter's like, I hadn't seen Eddie in a few weeks. I thought he was dead. And I'm like, dude, we haven't seen Eddie in years. What is time to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of just wasn't really thinking about it all that much.
That's the correct way to go into these issues. All right, so Eddie wakes up in an energy prison. I don't know what else to call it. It's like a jail cell, but there's just lights around him. And he's being observed on the other side by some doctors and scientists and also Bolivar Trask.
And Adrian Toomes.
I was going to get there.
Oh, damn it. Sorry.
John, we remember Bolivar Trask, right?
We do. We've seen him in a lot of movies and TV shows.
Yes, he's usually an X-Men villain who makes the Sentinels. But in this comic series, we've also been told before that that's who Eddie Brock's parents and Peter's parents worked for.
I didn't remember that until they said it in this issue. They said that again.
I also didn't, and I was like, Bolivar Trask, what are you doing here? Like,
me too.
This should be a Spider-Man villain. This should be Mr. Roxxon or something. And then I was like, oh yeah, that does make more sense that it's him. And he introduces Eddie to his associate, Adrian Toomes, who we know is the Vulture, who starts saying, I worked with your dad and Richard Parker. And Trask hilariously cuts him off and says he doesn't need a resume.
That is funny.
It's like he introduced this guy, but then doesn't let him like talk, even when he has something kind of interesting to say.
That's actually this is a really deep cut, but in Captain America 1, there's a part where they're like breaking out of the Hydra prison, right? Captain America goes in, he breaks them all out, and all the guys are breaking out, and he's like, "Do you know how to drive this thing?" And one of the guys goes, "I don't know." He's like, "I took German for a year, switched to French, girls much cuter." And the guy's like, "I didn't ask for your life story." And it's like, you actually kind of did, like 1 second before he answered. You were like, "Do you know how to understand this thing?" And he told it was just, it's a line that annoys me in that movie. A great movie, but there you go.
A very great movie, indeed. Trask tells him he knows the suit is bonded to Eddie and that Eddie isn't in control anymore, and they're going to help him by removing it from him and giving Eddie his life back. And Eddie asks why, and Trask says, "Well, not to sound crass, but that suit is worth billions of dollars." And Eddie says, "It was my father's." And Trask says, "Actually, it's mine. Your father sold it to me before he died." And then Trask starts talking about how with Eddie...
What was the situation of Peter's dad's death and Eddie's death? And like, I don't fully remember. Did they like know someone was coming after them and they got on a plane and died? That's like generally what happened.
It's been retconned a few times. In like, I think the earliest telling of it that we got, it was Trask had employed them to build it, and then they figured out he was going to use it as a weapon and not to cure cancer, and they quit, and he stole all of the intellectual property, and then they were like trying to start over or something, and the plane went down. And then in another telling, it was like they were going to sell it to him, and they got on the plane, and then the plane went down. But they hadn't signed the deal yet. That's what they were on the way to do.
That's right. They were like going there to sign the deal.
But that might have been told to us.
Were Eddie's parents on that plane also?
So yeah, so this is where I don't know what to believe, because Eddie's parents were on the plane. Peter's mom was on the plane, but I think we were told this story
that Peter's dad got off the plane.
And that's how he met him during the Clone Saga, but then ended up
just a clone, but that's
not even being his dad. So I think it's ambiguous whether, like, who the rights belong to, you know, who legally owns the suit. Yeah. But Trask is saying that he does, because of course the rich guy who wants it is going to say he does.
Yeah. And he effectively owns the suit. It's like kind of annoying that they're even like doing this. I own it, so give it to me. Well, it doesn't. It's a fucking Venom suit. Whoever owns it is whoever has it in the current moment. You know, I don't think that this is going to go to a court and Venom's going to like stand trial.
Yeah, and even if a judge said, "Well, you know, Trask does own it,"
he owns it. Hey, Eddie, he owns it.
How are you going to enforce that?
Yeah.
All right, so Eddie venoms up and lunges at the energy wall, which shocks him and blows him back. And he turns back into human form and asks, "What do I do first?" And we cut back to the Met, which I still refuse to call the ESU Museum of Art. And Spider-Man is down on the ground surrounded by a bunch of cops pointing their guns at him. And some of them are like pretty gung-ho. Like one guy says, "I'll blow your f***ing head off," or something.
Know, they're like insanely like aggressive. So, I mean, yeah.
And Spider-Man slowly gets up while telling them a gaggle. An honest-to-God gaggle of armed mercenary assassin-type guys and girls just kidnapped a monster and drove off not 2 seconds ago. So instead of trying to arrest me, which has on numerous occasions proven not to be possible, why don't you call in backup and try to pull over that van that's speeding away? And he points to himself and then down the road and says, "Good guy here, bad guys there," like they're 4-year-olds that don't understand basic concepts. And The bystanders on the street have Spider-Man's back, and they back up what he's saying, and one woman yells, "Spider-Man saved my baby!" And Peter kind of drops the Spider-Man character for a second. I think this is like Peter Parker talking and not putting on a show. And he's like, "Thank you. No one ever says anything nice. I appreciate that." And John, based off of how this scene started, if this were realistic in any way, these cops don't want to hear this. They are not persuadable. Like, they are going to shoot because they already wanted an excuse to. But that's not what happens. They're like, "Oh, okay, I guess we misread the situation."
Okay, but the real world in this world that we're reading, this would happen. They wouldn't just start, right? They have been through this with Spider-Man before.
Then how do they keep falling for this? How does every time their first instinct is, we got to point our guns at this guy and threaten to kill him?
I think they just see they're just doing their best out there.
All right, I can accept that. So anyways, they put their guns away and they start working with him and talking to him and stuff, and they're calling in backup. And later that night, Peter is talking to MJ, and we realize he just got done narrating the scene we just witnessed. And he tells her he was actually stalling by talking to the police.
Okay, so that last scene, that was just at an indescribable time period on the planet, and now he's with Mary Jane recounting that, and we don't know when that's either. So this is all just Doctor Who time logic in this episode. They're just somewhere doing something. It's just a story.
Dude, as far as we know, the events of these issues could have taken place between issues like 40 and 41 of this series.
Yeah, they could have, yeah.
We have no clue how far back we are in this moment.
And it's fun.
We're having a good time.
I'm not complaining.
Honestly, I'm thinking about it. This might have even taken place before he originally met Silver Sable, because at some point he's like, "Wait, who's that lady?"
Okay. I'm hoping, I know what you're talking about, and I'm hoping that the actual reason, you are right, that makes sense now that you say that. But I was thinking, oh, that's funny that Nick Fury's like, at some point, right, spoilers for the next issue, at some point Nick Fury's like, "When we caught Silver Sable," and Peter's like, "Who?" And I'm like, that's hilarious. Because she's so unimportant and she's done nothing every time we see her. Like, I love that. That Peter's like, "I don't even know who this woman is."
And she's genuinely dealt with Flash thinking he was Spider-Man more frequently than she's dealt with actual Spider-Man.
Yeah, but it could be because she just canonically hasn't appeared yet. We don't know. And it's fine.
I do hope the true answer is that she just doesn't register in his mind as important.
I think that's what it is.
Okay. So Peter's telling MJ about all this, and he tells her he was actually stalling by talking to the police because the further away Eddie got from him, the more he could feel his powers come back to him every second. And I was like, has this been mentioned before? Last week we were told his spider sense was just annoying him.
I know it's not. No, it hasn't been. We are supposed to infer that Peter has done more thinking and talking about this, and he's figured out more about what it is in off screen, I think.
Well, I don't love that, and I'm sorry, Bendis, but that's going to be like a strike against the final rating for this issue.
I can understand that. I'm going to give that strike back, though, in the same scene, because this page of panels where MJ and Peter are just talking to each other, but he's like doing stuff. It's like the real world, right? He's digging through his stuff. He's finding his microscope. He's putting the microscope together. He's like pricking his own blood. He's putting the slide under the microscope to look at it. And none of it is like mentioned at all in their conversation. Like, it's really being done, I think, like very real world, how things would happen. You know, you don't always talk about the same thing that you're like currently doing. So I just really liked it, and I was also thinking, and then he looks at his blood, and I was also thinking, oh man, this would be like a good issue for like my 7th graders to read in science class. Like this would like maybe get people interested, and they'd be like, oh, Spider-Man's like digging out microscopes and looking at stuff under him. Like, oh, this is cool. That's how I know I'm getting old. I'm like, oh, the kids would think this is really cool.
John, I love that you did this like in your own way, because you didn't actually steal my thunder, but I was going to mention some of the same stuff and about this scene in particular, and I'm glad that like we both had the thought, because that means it is there on the page. But
yeah,
I'm gonna get through the scene and then I'll say what I noticed about it.
Okay.
So, Peter apologizes that Mary Jane was put in that dangerous situation because of him. And MJ just seems excited. And she says it's going to make a great book one day. And they argue about who would get to write a Spider-Man tell-all book. Because, it's his life, but also she's been there for most of the stuff, and it's affected her too. And MJ says, okay, for my book, how exactly was this your fault? And then Peter expositions really more for the readers who weren't around 90 issues ago than for MJ, who Eddie Brock is and what their connection is to each other. And Peter says he thought Eddie was dead, and when he got close to him today, it felt like his brain was going to crawl out of his face. And like John alluded to, he pulls out a needle and is about to poke himself in the finger with it. And MJ says, ew, if you're going to do that, I'm going to hurl. And Peter tells her to look away, and she says no. And then he pricks his finger, and MJ says, I should have looked away. And he says, told you. And he looks at his blood, and he has no idea what he's seeing. And there's little black specks inside of his blood cells. And his computer dings, and he says he set up alerts in case any stories break mentioning Eddie. And he suits up and says, sorry, I think I got to cut this date short. And he leaves MJ sitting alone in his basement, and she says, this was a date?
So he's looking at his blood, and it's got these black specks. Has he looked, surely he's looked at his blood before as Spider-Man, and these weren't there, right? Or were they there?
He's looked at his blood. Reed Richards has looked at his blood. Kurt Connors has looked at his blood. Doc Ock, Green Goblin,
well, and there's always weird stuff going on with it, right? Everyone's always like, oh, this isn't normal blood. But is it the black specks?
We've never seen the black specks.
Okay.
That's new.
How did they get on him? Maybe just like little micro venom, like when he got close, like teeny tiny particles, like
he managed
to attach.
Infected. They say there's micro venoms in all of our water nowadays. We're all drinking them.
Yeah, that's true. That's big water for you.
All right, so I'm going to talk about, this is low key a great scene. This is
high key a great scene. I already, that's what I think.
Well, it could be missed in a quick read. It could be missed. I'm saying there's subtle things about this that I like. Obviously, the retcon that he loses his power around Venom is a little weird and clunky, but everything else is so well executed. So, like John said, what you see in the panel is them just being busy about their lives. She's kind of pacing and leaning on stuff, and he's thumbing through things that he's got. But then, it's fun how they start talking about random stuff, and I started thinking about it. There's 3 levels of how you can have characters do a conversation. The first is just surface level. They are talking about what they're doing and nothing else is present in the scene. I feel like that's how an untrained writer would write just about every scene that they do. The second level is think of what Quentin Tarantino always does in his movies, where it's just kind of filling the space with things that make it feel more realistic. People are sitting around. Mise-en-scène. People are sitting around planning a heist, but they're actually talking about a Madonna song in the middle of it, because that's just how normal human conversation goes. but the Madonna song doesn't actually tell you anything about those characters or about the plot. Then there's like a third level where you have that mise-en-scène add to the story or add to the characters. We keep being told that Mary Jane is like super into journalism.
That's not mise-en-scène. I'm sorry. Mise-en-scène is like the objects you put
Everything
into the background
Okay.
that make the world real. Not what they're talking about. Sorry, Zach.
Is there a technical term for what I'm saying though? I would just say like
I don't know. You can maybe say like subtext, right? Like, but that's not really what
I'm saying.
What
It lacks
talking
subtext.
about. Yeah, because you're saying it's
just like
it's just like real.
dialogue.
It's just like real world. Yeah, dialogue. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino's a good like person to say that for, because his characters are always just like having real world conversations, right? Like Jules and whatever his name is are talking about like quarter pounders with cheese and foot massages and all this stuff that like while they're doing their work.
Or Josh Whedon characters are doing the same thing. Like Buffy will be fighting a vampire and be talking about like how that burrito that she had that morning was really bad and who pays $7 for a bad burrito. And it's that kind of thing. And Bendis can do that sometimes. But here, so we keep being told that Mary Jane is getting into journalism and that's like her thing. And a lot of times I've criticized it because it felt like a clunky tell, don't show, like, okay, where have we seen this from her before? Mary Jane saying she wants to write a book about her Spider-Man experience feels like something that the Mary Jane from the first 100 issues would do, and also something that the Mary Jane from the last 20 issues would do. It's a good summation of the character that came up in organic conversation. And the fact that Peter is like looking at this blood sample, that is something that he would do that's like science-y. And then this is kind of, John, I don't want to get onto like an alpha male Andrew Tate conversation, but this is like the most critical thing I will ever say broadly about women.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, everyone, prepare yourself.
I'm about to get canceled. But anyways, when she's like, sees that he's about to prick himself, and she's like, oh, if I see your blood, I'm going to throw up. And he's like, then look away. And she's like, no. And then she immediately sees blood and is like, I'm going to throw up. I'm at a loss for words. Like, that is like, that's just fun. That's like the troubles of like dating a woman. It's like I'm going to be cold. Okay, well, bring a jacket. I don't really want to. And then they get there and they don't have a jacket and they're like, I'm cold.
Okay, that's funny. That's funny right there.
I don't know how to say this in like the proper way, but I recognized it when I saw it.
That's funny. Okay. Not that critical. I don't think we need to cancel you for that.
Okay.
Women do be never knowing what they want, Zach.
I'm thirsty. Okay, then drink water. I don't know about that. And then, like, I wish I had brought a water, That's what Mary Jane does. It's like, why are you looking at the blood when you... Anyways, I'm done. This was just a fun scene. It was the kids being the kids, and then Peter runs off to Spider-Man, and he's like, I got to cut this date short. And she's like, this was a date? We were just hanging out. How was this a date? How was this, like, what was I supposed to get out of this?
Yeah. They're just having fun.
Yeah. Good scene, Bendis. Okay, so we cut now to 20 minutes.
Good scene. Immerman. He's the one who drew it all,
That's true. So it really was hand in hand. The art is working and the words are working, and they're going in two different directions, but that just like expands, where our thoughts and our attention is going. It was really good. So now it says we cut to 20 minutes prior at Trask Laboratories. So for those who were following along, we originally went like 5 months back, and then it says like 4 months later, and then we say 1 month ago, and then it was later that night, and now we're 20 minutes ago from later that night. Just to clarify.
This is so stupid.
Venom is standing up inside a glass tube, and someone asks, "Is that enough to hold him?" And Silver Sable says, "Bet not."
You know, this like all this time stuff, it reminds me of, and we're going to talk about like Deadpool and Wolverine, but it reminds me of like the stupidity of trying to put all of the X-Men universes like in an actual timeline in universes. And it's like this comic would be trying to do that. And luckily in the X-Men movies, like you've said issues ago, you're like, they don't think about it. They don't even care. You've thought about it more than they do. And that's what this issue should have done, because it's just like, who the hell knows when any of these times are even in reference to?
Yeah. It almost would have been more fun. Give us this entire story arc. I mean, it would have been a clusterfuck, and we would have had a hard time even describing it. But, like, let it do a Pulp Fiction thing, because it's already kind of trying to. But then when you give us frames of reference for Pulp Fiction, you eliminate the fun of Pulp Fiction. The fun is, these are the puzzle pieces. Good luck.
Lots of Pulp Fiction references in today's issue.
I didn't mean to do that, but it just kind of happened organically.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so
One time when I was like 16, or probably older than that, maybe a little bit, but a girl and I watched Pulp Fiction, and it wasn't one of her favorite movies. It probably wasn't a good like first or second date movie, you know, to bring over and watch with her parents. Her mom was like, "I couldn't believe it when you said that that's what you guys were going to watch."
I tried to watch that movie one time with my cousin and her husband, and they were like, "Yeah, we've heard this is a good movie. We're excited." And they thought it was like the kind of movie that you can like talk throughout and walk into the other room and make snacks and go to the bathroom and be on your phone. And I just stopped like 10 minutes in. I was like, this isn't going to work. Okay, so Silver Sable says she bets that the aquarium won't hold Venom, and Trask tells her it absolutely will. And just then the beetle crashes through the window and starts attacking everyone in the room. And Sable starts blasting the beetle, but the beetle already dropped sleeping gas bombs that knock everyone else out, including Sable. And this kind of made me realize I don't like stories that rely on like everyone having access to every piece of tech that you see in movies, like the freaking energy prisons that we don't really understand and energy beams that we can't describe, and every villain has sleeping gas bombs. It seems a little bit lazy to me, but whatever.
Okay. I can respect it.
Beetle releases Venom from the cage, and Venom says...
Are Beetle and Silver Sable on the same team? Is Beetle like the Silver Sable assassin or something?
No. And I hate to tell you that your theory last week that they're the same person is definitely wrong.
Well, it's definitely wrong now. They're both in the scenes together.
No,
but they're also not on the same team.
No, I think it's pretty clear that Silver Sable is like trying to stop this guy.
They just happen to both show up at the same time.
Correct. God, dude, I really was wishing that Venom would like easily break out of this glass tube that Trask had just said there's no way he could get out of. Beetle lets him out, and I kind of hate that that's the resolution, because it's kind of like a Chekhov's gun. When you say there's no way something can break out of this cage, you know that it's going to break out of the cage. And we were kind of denied being able to laugh at Trask about that. But Venom's like, speak your name. And I didn't like how much Venom is talking in this issue. I feel like Venom should just be more like a mindless force of nature. But Beetle does not speak his or her name. They slice a piece of Venom tentacle off and put it in a test tube and fly off into the night. And Venom goes berserk and eats someone who's knocked out on the ground and jumps out of the window.
Beetle is a beast. I mean, he's proving him or herself to be pretty competent.
Yeah, and for people who are reading the current run of Ultimates, written by Denise Camp in the new Ultimate Universe, I just can't help but notice that this Beetle looks so much like Iron Lad that we have there that's like serving the Iron Man role. The armor just looks uncannily similar. And Sable wakes up just in time to see Venom escape. And Venom catches up with Beetle.
There's a fun little Easter egg here that's
Okay.
kind of skipped through.
Okay, what's that? I might have missed it.
So, early on, when they're like, is this going to hold? Yeah, it'll hold. One of the doctors says, or maybe it's Toombs or Trask or something, I don't know. It says, well, I've seen the end of King Kong, so I'm going to leave and let you do what you have to do. Like, joking that it's not going to work, right? He knows how this movie ends. And then, when Venom breaks out, we do get this picture of him, like, holding this woman in his hand. And I think it's supposed to be, like, King Kong kind of... I mean, he's not standing on a building doing it, obviously, but I think that there's some... It made me think of King Kong.
Yeah, I see that now. And 2 panels later, when he jumps out of the window, he's just a silhouette from afar, and he kind of looks very ape-like.
And he is, like, jumping out of a building. So I think that was on purpose, you know, the King Kong imagery.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay, so Venom catches up with Beetle, drags them down to the street below, and starts a big fight with a lot of collateral damage. And a single dumb cop on a horse rides up with his pistol drawn and decides that he's John Wayne and he's had enough.
Dude, that's awesome.
Enough malarkey on his streets. And he starts shooting at Venom, and Venom's just, like, eating the bullets. He doesn't care. And Venom comes up and, like, eats this dude's horse. And I feel so bad for the horse, John. The horse didn't sign up for this. He didn't want to wake up that day and get ridden by the dumbest guy on the police force.
Maybe the dumbest guy, but the best cop. This cop saw people in danger, and he rode up on his horse to fight this big monster creature with his single pistol.
There's something noble about his stupidity.
Definitely.
So Beetle tries to fly away, but Venom extends his tentacles several hundred feet up and catches Beetle. It was pretty impressive because, like, earlier in this arc, we were told, oh, don't stand too close to Venom because he can reach out and grab you. And here he's reaching, like, the length of these skyscrapers to grab Beetle out of the sky. And then Beetle starts blasting green energy beams down at Venom. And this whole sequence just really had fun art. I was just enjoying watching the fights in these couple pages. And Spider-Man swings in and kicks Eddie in the face. And Venom hisses, Parker! And Peter says, hey, buddy, cool it with the P word, and webs Venom in the mouth. And the suit starts pulling itself off of Eddie, and he starts crying out, asking what's happening. And Peter tells him to stop it, and Eddie says he's not doing anything. And the suit fully detaches from Eddie as he yells, please, no, please, don't leave me. And we see Peter standing dramatically, wearing the black suit with Venom eyes, as he yells, no!
No!
And the issue ends.
Gosh.
Crazy stuff, right?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Fun.
I gave it 8.5 out of 10 horses that deserved better.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good rating system. Gosh. Let me thumb back through this really quickly.
Are you starting to warm up to Immoman's art?
Yeah, I don't even think about it.
The first time I read through this series, I don't think I had read much more else that was like drawn by Immoman, and it was a really hard transition for me going from Bagley to Immoman, and I was like, I don't think I like this artist. And at a certain point, I was like, I think I might like this artist better. And these are like this is a good issue for like as far as a showing for him.
I think I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 horses that deserved better. There's just like a couple, the Silver Sable stuff, probably that part where Beetle breaks in, what you were talking about, all the scientists are just standing around. Kind of anytime all the scientists are just standing around like Venom being captured, it's like, all right, well, what are we doing? But pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah. There wasn't that much to it, but what was there was pretty good. There was a couple retcons, that like irritated us, or jumps of logic, but other than that, this was like what a single comic issue should be. It was pretty fun, and
it had some good fights, but it wasn't like just an issue full of fighting panels. A good issue has some of both.
Yes,
you've
I
got
agree.
Plenty of exposition going on and story, but then you've also got a little bit of a punch 'em up.
And we both took so much out of that conversation with Peter and Mary Jane. And I look back and I realized that was only like 2 pages.
Yeah.
Really, probably 3, because I think the first one is like a 2-page spread. But that was so little page length and had so much nuance and things to like in it.
Yeah, and I'm going to show it to my kids.
You should. The kids you teach.
They're all going to be they're all going to be scientists. Or you might say spider-tists.
You might. I wouldn't. Shiloh was talking about starting a comics club at her school, and when we were helping her set up her room yesterday, I saw a poster on the wall that there's another teacher who's already doing it.
Oh, really?
And they're watching the Marvel movies. They're going to watch a Marvel movie and then read the comic that corresponds to it.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. That's like why I would want to. That's the only reason why I'd want to have my own classroom, is so I can do stupid stuff like that under the guise of teaching.
Yeah. I'm a little mad that Shiloh doesn't get to do it, though, because I was definitely going to like come in and, sit on the chair backwards and be like, all right, kids.
Why couldn't she do it like with this other teacher?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I don't care about the comics that correspond with the Marvel movies. There's better comics out there.
Okay, what was I about to say? I felt like I was going to say something. Okay, it doesn't matter. Oh, maybe I'll get a bunch of signs and posters and put them around my little office, and it'll be like Captain America with the flag in the background, and it'll be like, Captain America says it's cool to respect your teachers.
She kind of did something similar. I don't know if I told you this.
Iron Man says science is neato.
She made things for her wall that's like uses the kids' slang, and she thinks she's going to look cool for it. It's like, you need a hall pass to use the skibbity toilet.
God bless it. That's awesome. That's great.
It's low key bussin' when you complete all your assignments.
God, I wish I like want to do that also really badly, just so when the kids, like, obviously they're gonna think she's like the biggest dork ever, right? Like, yes. She knows that, right? Okay.
I think she thinks it's gonna be a big hit.
I want to do that just so I can forever say that to the kids, like, this is cool. I'm really cool. But like, secretly it's a bit, obviously.
That is the moment that every bit of slang dies, is like when, teachers and parents start using it and they start reporting about it on the news. The kids are like, okay, we got to come up with something else.
I'll have to just start saying that when kids ask to go to the restroom. I'll be like, yes, you can go to the skibbity toilet. Straight-faced. Okay, issue 126. The Avengers are on the cover, which I don't really like. Why are you going to spoil the fact that the Avengers are going to show up in this, the Ultimates, whatever?
What are Avengers?
Yeah. The Ultimates. That was actually a totally in most of the parts in this, I did write the Ultimates, but on this I did say the Avengers are on the cover. So we kind of start similar to where we left off. Peter has just been taken over by the black suit, and things do not look good. He's skipping down the street. He's doing cool spins and snapping his fingers at women. He's telling a crowded bar full of patrons to dig on this. We've never seen Spider-Man like this before.
My God, he's gone too far.
Yeah.
He's dancing with Gwen Stacy just to make Mary Jane nervous, jealous.
No, not really. Black suit Spidey, he's where we left off. He's standing on the car. He's yelling, "No!" And everyone's watching in the background. And he's mentally fighting with the symbiote and saying, and it's kind of saying hungry. And he's thinking, "No, please God, no." And Venom begins to fight Beetle. And he's kind of
Venom that is now Peter Parker.
Yes. He's like basically in control of the body. Peter's just inside it, like thinking. So Venom begins to fight Beetle, and he's easily capturing it. He's about to eat it before Peter's kind of able to gain enough control to just chuck the Beetle as far away as possible. And Eddie is pleading with the symbiote to take him back, while Sable is taking advantage of Venom / Peter's attention being on Eddie just for a second, and her team start blasting him from a helicopter. And more people are converging on Peter / Venom, and they're shooting him with all these different guns as he's thinking to himself, "Please, I don't know how to stop this." So it seems like he's almost like trying to say these things out loud, but he's like not able to.
Yeah.
You know, like Venom just has control of the body too much. So he's just thinking all this.
I feel for him. It feels like really scary, like being able to tell that he's like trapped in this body that he's not in control of, you know?
Yeah.
It's very dramatic. We haven't had like drama in this series for a while, because like when he fights a villain, you know, okay, he's not going to die. MJ's not going to die. This is kind of just going to resolve. But here it's like a different kind of conflict where Peter, it's not that he's in danger himself. It's that he could really hurt or kill someone, and then he would feel bad about it.
Oh, he would feel bad. Well, we don't want that.
We don't.
So Peter continues to get blasted, and he's crawling away, and he's thinking to himself, "Tell them your name. Tell them who you are. They're going to kill you." But as he's thinking all this, his actions are still kind of being controlled by Venom, who's just chucking cars across the street at Sable and her men. And Eddie Brock is still yelling for Sable not to hurt the symbiote, but Sable just tells him to put a cork in it as she runs back towards Venom. And I think that's pretty good. I liked that. That was a good Sable moment.
One of one.
She's growing on me, but yeah. So, yeah.
It's like Fury. There's certain characters that are a lot more fun when you just realize their whole point is they're kind of incompetent and or dreadful. There is a way to make Silver Sable fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And she's doing it. And Peter thinks of his loved ones, Aunt May and MJ, and he's like, not going to let them take me, not going to die here, before just jumping high into the sky, I think trying to escape. But then as he jumps into the sky, a helicopter is like right in front of his face, and Venom manages to just like take out that helicopter, crashing it into the ground, causing a huge explosion on the street, and almost like making things like much worse. And Venom stands on top of the fiery helicopter yelling, "Hungry," as Peter thinks to himself to run away from this. And Sable and her men, they begin to regroup, and they're fighting, when out of nowhere, she says, "Okay, team, pull back." And when one of them asks why, we get the money shot of this issue, a full page of the Ultimates coming down to kick Venom's butt. As Sable says off panel, the big boys are here. And this was pretty good, I thought. This was some real good Avengering right here.
I can literally hear the Avengers theme song swelling in my head as I look at this panel.
Okay, Zach, which part is swelling in your head? The part where they go da-na-na, 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 or the part where it goes do-do-do-do,
do-do-do, that part, for sure.
Okay. That's usually after they've already showed up. Usually, when they're just initially showing up, you'd get the intro to the theme. But
by the way, have you seen the video clip where someone plays that theme over Alex Jones having an unhinged rant?
That's awesome.
I'm going to send it to you when we get done with this.
That's probably really funny.
It's one of my favorite things on the internet.
Yeah, I bet that's hilarious. This is a pretty good scene here. Nick Fury's in his armor. He's telling the team, all right, kids, time to earn your paychecks. Janet Van Dyne is Wasp in the background. She's like, paychecks? Hawkeye is somehow flying, which he's also flying on the cover.
I think he's dropping in.
Well, he's also flying on the cover. So I think he must have the same type of boot technology that just must be S.H.I.E.L.D., right? That anybody can fly with technology.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. And Thor and Captain America and Iron Man just look awesome.
Yeah, it's a good picture.
It's a good one.
It goes hard. That might be the cover shot of the Instagram post this week.
Yep, I think so. And the Ultimates and Venom prepare to fight. Venom's yelling and fighting. Internally, Peter's like, oh, no, not Iron Man. I love Tony Stark, as he's kicking his ass. And Venom is just easily holding his own. He's kind of throwing people away like Iron Man and Wasp before it's time for Cap. And Cap taps in and he throws a shield only for it to be easily caught by Venom before Cap jumps in and tackles him from behind. And here's one of my favorite parts of this issue. Venom's about to eat Captain America. He's I would say he's Captain America's kind of on his head, but Venom's got a pretty big mouth. He could easily take a chomp out of him. And Cap's what's he say? He says, punk, I'll smash every tooth in that face. It's just the most grandpa, I don't know, putting a kid in his place thing you've ever heard.
It's like Clint Eastwood saying, get off my lawn.
Yeah. And Venom's about to, take a big chunk out of him. And then Peter regains enough control to chuck Captain America just far away. And so Fury calls in Thor.
You missed the funniest part of that panel.
He says, sorry.
He's just thinking in his head, sorry.
Sorry, as he just launches him. And so now it's time for Thor. Fury calls Thor in. And Thor brings down a huge lightning bolt on Captain America's shield, which Venom is now using. And Fury's yelling at the team to clear out. He tells Thor there's only one way for this to end. And he tells Thor to, really, really do his thing. And Eddie Brock's in the background, and he says, this is what you get, Parker. This is what you get. And
he's doing the thing that, movies have women do after a one-night stand, where they're, wearing a button-up blouse and just kind of holding it together and not wearing pants. Because he was naked when he changed, and somehow he found a single...
We did. We actually did miss a new teenage transformation here. Yeah.
Shoot, man.
I thought about that when I read it, and we both forgot about it.
Bro, what a missed opportunity. What if we don't get another one in this series?
Yeah, I'm sure that's very unlikely.
But I just think it's so funny, yeah, he found clothes because, of course, when someone turns naked, they find clothes somehow. but he only found the one shirt.
He actually is. He's like wearing an oversized like button up, like very similar to a one night stand look.
It's pretty funny. He's Winnie the Poohing it.
And Nick Fury kind of hears what he says, and he turns around and he says, "Did you say Parker?" And this is as Thor is kind of hammering Venom in the background. And Venom manages to do a big jump. We get another pretty cool scene here. Venom's doing a big jump out of an explosion, and he begins to overtake Thor. And he's about to eat him, and he's just humongous. Venom must get stronger with, like, pain or something.
I think it's as he eats. And
well, that wouldn't make much sense.
He just ate a horse.
Hasn't eaten. But that was, like, a while ago.
That was last issue, but it still happened, like,
no, but I mean,
he's,
like, huge now. Like, he's, like, fully on top. Like, Thor, he's, like, on top of Thor about to eat him. Captain America's, like, jumping in from behind. And they both just look minuscule in comparison.
Yeah, I guess.
I think jumping out of that fire. I think maybe, like, fire, maybe.
He expands with heat. That's what science says.
Well, then I think that's probably it. Maybe. He's about to eat Thor, and Captain America, to his credit, jumps in. He's not done fighting this enormous monster creature.
One could say he could do this all day.
I love it. I didn't even think that. And Fury yells at Cap to fall back. He tells Thor to hit him with the God stuff before saying, "Sorry, kid," under his breath. And Thor does a huge lightning, and it does pretty good damage to Venom. And we see Eddie Brock watching on crying, Venom screaming, and it seems like this is the first time Peter's managed to actually like get Peter Parker words out, because Venom is screaming, "Help me," before everything goes black. And surprisingly, Peter wakes up in his bed, thinking to himself, I'm home, I'm okay, I'm normal, I'm in my pajamas. Please tell me I didn't just dream all of that, because as big as a relief as it would be that I didn't just turn into a big black slimy monster and get my butt whooped by Thor, imagining that happened is actually much scarier in many ways. And that's when Aunt May appears at the door. And she says, "Mr. Parker, what do you have to say for yourself?" And something feels off about Aunt May to me. She looks young. She looks pretty good, if you ask me. And
I don't
she's
think
like
she was
wearing
ever supposed to be old in this series. I read her as like she's in her mid to late 40s, and she just went gray early.
Well, let me go through this whole scene, and I'm going to tell you why I feel off about this scene, okay? So she says, "Mr. Parker, what do you have to say for yourself?" And we don't really know what she's referring to. And then she says, "It's almost noon, you're still sleeping, and you stayed out all night. You didn't tell me where you were. It made me worry." She says, "If you're going to be working late or you go to MJ's, you need to call." And then Aunt May tells him that he fell asleep in front of the news and woke up and saw a monster was running down the street. And she asked Peter to not make her worry. Oh my God, Zach, I just understand why. Yeah, you're shaking your head because you already knew why everything seemed off. Because she doesn't know he's Spider-Man yet in this storyline.
Which means this happened before the Clone Saga, but him and Mary Jane are still dating, which means it happens also before they broke up, which means it happens before he met Silver Sable. So he genuinely doesn't know who she is.
See, reading this the first time, I was kind of thinking that he might be in some sort of a Venom mental thing. I don't know, like something mentally was going on with him.
Oh my God.
Because Aunt May looks a little weird, and for some reason she's like acting kind of weird because she doesn't realize he's Spider. I don't know. I was just like, something's off. But
this is also their old house. I kept wondering, I was like, why are they in the basement? I don't think he has a basement in his new house. I think he just does this stuff in his bedroom.
That's true. He is about to go down into his basement. I didn't even think of that either. So there's nothing off about the scene. We talked through it. Aunt May is still looking good, if you ask me.
Yeah. Dude, that's the thing. She has been the whole time. You just didn't see it.
I needed her to put on those yellow latex cleaning gloves.
Yeah,
and her Led Zeppelin shirt, and just, I don't know. Okay, so something seems not right here, Zach. Am I being crazy? We already talked through it. So Peter goes into the basement, and he begins to wonder if he did imagine everything. And he kind of checks for clues. And he checks for his costume, and he sees that it's gone. And then he hops onto the computer, and he's like, I'm going to look at this monster in Midtown that Aunt May mentioned and see if it's the same monster. But before he can even do that, the first thing he sees when he opens his computer is that he has an email from Nick Fury saying, come over when you wake up. And Nick Fury's email address, if anybody wants to shoot him an email, is oneeyedeagle@ultimates.gov. What a dork. What a fucking dork, man.
That's so pretentious.
Dude, that's like when you would make your gamer tag back in the day to like play video games. Like,
there's not enough X's in it.
Badass XX XX badass shooter XX. Okay, so Peter he finds his leftover suit, which has the butt ripped out of it, because remember at the beginning of this run, MJ was like, oh, they saw your butt on TMZ because it got torn. And it's kind of fun. The butt's been sewn up. You can see it. It looks like a little like onesie where there's a patch for kids to use the restroom, on the butt. That's kind of what Peter's costume looks like. And Fury and Iron Man are already at the top of the Triskelion waiting for Spider-Man. And Tony immediately asks him if he's been getting dizzy spells or if he's had a parasitic experience like that before. But before, he can even finish, Peter interrupts him, just saying, what happened? And Fury tells him that Peter got himself into a jam. Fury says, you got yourself into a jam, and I got you out of it. And I don't think that's true. Before he immediately says Thor knocked the goo out of him. Like, Fury's really taking credit for a lot of stuff here. That's not like him.
Sorry,
I can tell you're missing my sweet jokes here.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at our Instagram, right? I'm piecing together when was the last time he would have fought Doc Ock, when he would have maybe gotten his suit ripped. And then when do the Parkers move? And is he dating MJ between then? And I think I've got a timeline for this figured out. I know this is
well, this has to happen before.
This happened so much longer ago than we even thought. So
this must happen now that you just said that, and they're in their old house. This happens before Gwen Stacy dies.
I don't know, though. The weird thing is then Gwen should be in these issues, or at least mentioned that she's living there. Well, I would think.
There is kind of a hook here at the end of this issue that I didn't think about in that way until just now.
Okay. All right. So if we're going based off of that, this happens sometime between Ultimate Spider-Man issue 59 and Ultimate Spider-Man issue 62.
Okay. We figured it out, everyone.
Whew. Okay, you can rest easy now.
Yeah. So Peter wonders how he got home and into his pajamas, and Fury's like, I did that, you're welcome, and I drugged your Aunt May. And Peter asks about Eddie Brock, and Fury says that they lost him in the crowd, but they have Silver Sable, and that's when Peter says, who? And Peter asks who has the suit, and Fury tells him that they have it right now. It's in the vault. And when Peter asks him to destroy it, he says no, because whatever his father was onto is big. He says it's a new thing that needs to be poked and prodded and tested. And Peter yells back at him that his dad was trying to cure cancer, not make whatever that thing is. And then we get a cool Nick Fury look at Peter, like he's about to tell him what the real world is like, kid. And he says, kid, countries are already fighting over it. Huge corporations are hiring soldiers and fighting over it. We've got assassins and bounty hunters and God knows what looking for it. Truth be told, kid, and I hate to tell it to you like this, your father may have started the next damn world war. And we see Iron Man, Fury, and Cap all reflected in Spider-Man's goggles looking towards him, really, really resolved looking. And then at the very bottom of the page, it says, next, Gwen Stacy. And I was thinking, oh man, is Gwen Stacy going to somehow like come back? Because this is a Venom thing, right? She's Venom related. But it's because she's probably not dead yet, maybe. I don't know.
I guess we'll have to see.
I do
want to talk about this last page of them reflected in Spider-Man's goggles. That feels like a really good Immonen doing a callback to Bagley's art style, because Bagley is the one who introduced like the ginormous, super reflective goggles that Spider-Man has, and he's also always got like the weird ripple effect in it that kind of shows the glare on it that Alyssa actually put into our logo, because I think of it as just like iconic for Bagley's art. And it feels like this is Immonen saying like, oh yeah, this is still Bagley's Spider-Man. This is how he was drawn back in those issues. You can tell it's not Bagley, but it's someone imitating Bagley or using some of his like key characteristics.
Okay, well, I didn't really notice that, but I did like it. It was a nice little page. Also, we got some good Ultimate stuff in this issue.
We sure did. This was another one I enjoyed.
I liked it a lot.
Do you have a rating for us?
Okay, could we do out of 10 Nick Fury burner email accounts?
Yes, I love it.
I'm going to give this one a 9. Slightly better than the last issue. Just like pretty fun. All good stuff.
Love it. Great insight.
9 Nick Fury burner emails.
Okay, I'm trying to think back of like what were the positives that would put this one over the last one. The art is pretty good, but I think the art's pretty good in both.
I think I mean it's a Spider-Man comic, right? But the pages of him as Venom fighting the Ultimates are good. They're good fights, you know. We get to see Tony Stark go in and try to take him out. Then we get to see Captain America go in. Then we call Thor. Like, it's just pretty good, you know. It's a good use of the Ultimates.
It is. I think I got to go slightly lower than I did on my issue. I think this is an 8 out of 10 Nick Fury burner emails for me.
Okay, still some really high scores.
Yes. This was super enjoyable. Definitely better than last week. I think this arc picked up towards the end.
Yep. And Gwen Stacy's coming back in the next one.
At least that's what it says. Maybe they're talking...
Exciting.
John, I don't want to get our hopes up. Maybe they're talking about the legendary 2000s Indianapolis Christ Core band Gwen Stacy.
That'd be fun too.
That was a real thing.
Christ Core?
Yeah, like Christian metalcore. That was really big in the 2000s, and we had one of those bands from here was called Gwen Stacy.
Awesome.
And they weren't just like a local band or anything. They toured. People knew them.
Well, I mean, obviously they had to be kind of big if they're in a Spider-Man issue.
Exactly.
I mean, they got a character named after them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, people underestimate how big Gwen Stacy was and how they influenced the creation of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah. Okay. You got anything else on these issues?
I don't. We talked for a long while on them. No one can say this isn't a Spider-Man podcast anymore now. I think we've got Deadpool, we've got some Robert Downey Jr. news, we've got trivia, we've got jams. I've got one thing I want to mention. Do you have anything else?
There's a lot. There's a lot going on here. Okay. Well, first, just since I said the thing about the boys that I wouldn't have even mentioned. Yes, there is. Well, they're going to have Gen V season 2, but also there's a prequel series starring Jensen Ackles and the person who plays Stormfront as Liberty back in like the 1950s. And it's going to be called Vault Rising.
Interesting.
I am excited for it. I like me some Soldier Boy.
Yeah, Jensen Ackles is great. I mean, as far as characters go, I mean, they both suck, but I'm certain
like
that's
Soldier
the point.
Boy?
I mean, like...
Oh, like they suck, like they're bad, like they're bad guys.
They're bad people, yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the point of the boys anyways. That could be interesting. I can kind of see the vision.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into everything else.
All right. First things first, you want to talk Deadpool?
Yes.
And Wolverine?
Yes.
We haven't done this at all. We didn't end up watching it together. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I'm sure we will go into some spoilers. So if anyone's listening to this and they don't want to know anything at all, then, as if it hasn't been spoiled on the internet already. But yeah, probably best to stop listening. Dude, pretty fun. It's pretty fun, right? Maybe it wasn't pretty great, but it was pretty fun.
That is the distinction I keep coming back to, is I was laughing a lot in theaters and smiling and, just generally had a good time. Like, it's expensive to go to movies nowadays, and get snacks and the whole thing. And I'm glad I did it. I really enjoyed it. And then we walked out, and I think Shiloh was expecting me to sing its praises. And I was just like, meh, I probably won't watch it again.
Well, people might be saying the MCU's back. People are getting out to the theaters. And that wasn't true for my theater. I was the only person in it. There was literally... There was nobody else in the theater, and the showing right beforehand, because there was a showing at 11:40 that I was going to get tickets for. There were 2 other people in the theater, because you can see online, right? And then I was like, I can't make it by then. I'll get the one at 12:10. Nobody else. And it was the perfect movie-going experience.
That sounds incredible. If I was rich, like... so rich that I could start spending my money on stupid stuff, that's how I would go to movies. I would just rent out a whole theater.
Yeah, it was awesome. But when Captain America did his little salute on the screen and Deadpool gave it back, before they even showed Deadpool giving the salute back, I was already saluting back in the theater. I love that. Okay, so I mean, what do we think of the story, just as a whole?
Was there a story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Deadpool's got to find a Logan, and they've got to, get through the void and fight Cassandra Nova. And I mean, it wasn't that tight of a story, but.
So I'm going to read my immediate reaction. I tweeted this out a couple of hours after I saw it, and I said,
okay.
Been trying all day to put my finger on what the biggest problem is with Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think
I thought maybe we could do the things we liked about it first. I'm sure we liked it, and then we could get it. I don't want to just come in, because there's some stuff I'm going to complain about also, obviously. But okay. Maybe we'll do the complaining first.
Yeah, I'm halfway through my tweet. Okay, so I said it's not an adaptation or reinterpretation of the source material. It's a parody of it. Just a 2-hour-long SNL skit.
Oh, I think that's mean.
I'm sorry, I didn't say it was nice.
I don't think that gives it enough credit.
Listen, SNL skits can be funny sometimes. I watched SNL for years. This was an SNL skit of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, right? Just like starting off going through the movie, the bye thing at the beginning, I did not get like very much enjoyment out of. It felt to me like Ryan Reynolds has really wanted to do the NSYNC bye dance for a while. And he was like, I'm just going to do it.
He found a way to work it in.
He found a way to work it in. And I can respect it because I did the bye dance when I was in high school for a talent show. We all have phases where we want to learn the bye dance and do it. And I'm glad he got to do it. But it didn't fit in with the movie very well at all. I thought it was kind of like it came out of nowhere. I'm like, Deadpool doesn't have like dance scenes where he turns to the camera and sings and dances. Like, that's not what happens, but it can be. It did. He
was just having fun.
He was just having fun.
I was like, that was one of the moments where I was watching the screen and I was grinning and laughing and genuinely enjoying myself. And in my head, I thought, this is
a very good
stupidest thing I've ever seen.
The scene with Happy Hogan, that's like just really bad, and it doesn't make any sense.
We don't have to say all the mean stuff. We can start with nice stuff.
No, well, we're already
on anything you liked about this movie?
Yeah, I had like so much I liked about it, but we're already on the mean stuff, right? So, the stuff with Happy Hogan. Why is Happy Hogan like the HR hiring person for the Avengers? Are we actually supposed to believe like that's how people get into the Avengers? They have to go through an interview process with Happy Hogan. How did Deadpool get over to the 616 universe? Are we going to say that Logan and Deadpool are in the same universe? That's what they're saying. And
that's the thing that made no sense to me.
That is not true. It isn't. It just isn't.
No stretch of imagination that makes that possible.
There's such a there's so much up stuff with the X-Men universes as is that it is stupid for them to try to say that these two are in the same thing and Logan is the anchor being for Deadpool's universe, which is a term we've never even heard before, when they can't be in the same universe. They just like can't. Like, because Logan is set in the future and Deadpool is set in a time with mutants and X-Men and the X school,
And there's no indication that Deadpool is like a couple of years away from like that world becoming just this wasteland where mutants are successfully eradicated.
Yeah. But it's fine,
And also the thing about anchor beings, it's so stupid. It's like,
it is.
Why?
It's a stupid concept.
Metaphysically, he's just so cool. The universe will die when he dies.
It's a fun. Yeah.
Do they die every 80 years? I mean, what are we doing here?
It's a fun concept in like making fun of the Fox universes to be like, this is our anchor being. And once Wolverine stopped making movies, the whole universe is done, right? That's like fun if we're making fun of Fox,
Yes. Someone tried to defend it to me like that.
But we're now gonna, and that's fine, but that's not gonna end. I can guarantee you in Doomsday and Secret Wars, we're gonna hear a lot more about anchor beings. That is gonna be something that I think that we are.
Oh God.
And I think it's gonna
end it now.
We're gonna, well, I don't know. It like you said, it's like, does the anchor being die in 80 years? And then it's like, why is it everyone we followed is an anchor being? You're telling me there aren't heroes in like the year 5000 that are just as important? I don't know. It just doesn't feel very like, I like the idea in theory of like the Avengers are like the anchor beings of the universe, but
I don't.
Just in theory, I like that.
It turns people into Superman when the point, in my mind, of the Marvel Universe is that, like, there's not a Superman. Anyone can be a hero. It's like the choices you make, right?
Yeah.
And And then also, it doesn't work as like a criticism of what Fox used to do. Oh, hey, remember how it used to all be about Wolverine? Here's a cheeky nod to that. Anyways, here's a movie that's all about Wolverine and Deadpool. Like, it was supposed to be this like final love letter to the X-Men movies and universe, and all you get about the other X-Men is like the little Green Day montage in the credits. And I was like, was this supposed to somehow even make us think about like Cyclops or Storm or Jean or like anything that happened to anyone else?
I think I saw like someone else's kind of criticisms about it, and it was similar to that. It was like, we see Wolverine, right? We know we're getting cameos. It'd be like fun to get like other X-Men, but literally the only people from the X-Men movies we get are like Pyro, another Juggernaut, another Toad. You know, we don't get any of the X-Men at all.
Gambit and Laura. And when you make, okay, can we talk about Cassandra Nova? Because I'm dying to talk about Cassandra Nova here. Would you make Cassandra Nova the main villain of a Deadpool movie? That's a strange choice, right? When you have her explicitly mention her backstory as like Charles Xavier's evil twin that died in the womb, that, I mean, you kind of have to, right? Because you already committed to doing a Cassandra Nova thing. But then when you don't have a Professor X to use as a foil for her, that's weird. When you don't have a Genosha for her to do, that's weird. The point of Cassandra Nova is she's like his id or whatever. It's the id, right? She is like a
like
lizard,
his worst impulses or something.
Yes, she's like a lizard-brained version of his powers who doesn't believe anyone else matters but her and him, and she doesn't do anything rationally. She does things to piss off Charles because in her mind all of his existence is just their little petty rivalry, right? She doesn't run a group of people and have a little kingdom in this part of the universe and then want to expand it. She's not thinking like that. You could have had any villain play that role because that's just villain trademark. That's not this crazy telepath
That's true.
person.
That's a good point. You know,
there was no reason to have her in this movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did you know that like the genocide of Genosha that we saw in the X-Men cartoon?
I've like
that's her.
Yeah,
that's like
kind
her
of
one story.
Watched some stuff about those videos. Yeah, I obviously don't know as much about her as you do, and I didn't like dislike her as a villain. I don't know.
She was a nothing.
She like chewed up some scenery pretty well, I think, and she was fine, but there is. I don't know. We can there is like the problem at the end of the movie where she's just like putting her arms in something trying to kill everyone, and Deadpool and Wolverine are just putting their arms in stuff like screaming trying to like do the opposite, and it's like, you know,
what are we watching here?
Yeah.
It's my criticism before you showed me some good Doctor Who episodes. It was like how I said every Doctor Who episode ends like, oh, you just run around and you press buttons and somehow that saves the world. That was this conclusion. Also, whoever over at Marvel Studios keeps taking our favorite old ladies, Madam Web, Aunt May, Cassandra Nova, and making them get played by
ladies,
young, hot women. They need to stop this. Knock it off right now.
I didn't know that she was supposed to be really old. I thought she was supposed to just be like a weird looking head, which I thought she kind of was, like a weird looking head, you know? Okay. A couple other criticisms, and then we will get on to the stuff I liked. There's too much Deadpool in this movie. I know it's a Deadpool movie, but man, he's pretty annoying at like a lot of times, I thought, where and it's fine to have the other characters in the movie like Cassandra Nova at a couple points and Wolverine at a couple points. They're like, shut the fuck up. You're being so annoying right now. And it's like fine to have him say that, but it's also like, dude, he is being annoying right now. It's just like reference after reference to like the real world and stuff like this. And it's all like the stupidest jokes ever that, you know, there were times of it where I'm like, this is too much. You have to exist in your world also, you know. Not everything can just be a reference to something that we're going to get in the audience.
Not to be self-congratulatory, but do you remember a few months ago when I wrote up some scenes that I just was kind of predicting they would have? I think I
read them out.
Yeah, that was fun. I think I half-assed some better Deadpool dialogue than what we got.
And then my least favorite part of the movie, my least favorite line was when I watched it, I like groaned and cringed, is when Deadpool and Wolverine are about to have their fight and Deadpool turns to the camera and goes, "Get your special sock out, nerds. This about to get good." And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that is the worst thing. If a movie or a show ever tells me what they're about to show me is going to get good, it's like, boy, you had really better deliver on that promise. And starting that joke with "get your special sock out, nerds," it's like you're like making fun of people who want to. It's
enjoy
like
your product.
You're making fun of people who are there for the whole reason you're making this movie. You're like, that's like a gross joke, I think. You know, I like don't like that joke at all to begin with. And then to finish it with "this about to get good," I'm like, this is just show the fight. Just be like, let's fucking go, and then start fighting, which they do later in the movie, and it's awesome.
Oh my God, all of the random Deadpools that show up and they have to fight them, and then all of a sudden a Peter shows up and everyone starts jumping up and down.
Yeah, it's pretty goofy, but it was funny, I thought.
I didn't even think it was funny. That was just... I wanted the time back of my life that I had to watch that. And then all that, and we didn't even get like the reveal that Lady Deadpool was Blake Lively, which I thought was the whole point of...
Or Taylor Swift, a lot of people thought that it was going to be.
What was any of that there for?
I don't know. And, you know, they're back on Deadpool's universe in that fight, right? They're in his universe. So
they're like outside his house. Blind Alley's listening.
Yeah, so it does. They should have had Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus show back up. There's like no reason to not put those X-Men who have been there since Deadpool 1 in the finale of this movie. That should have more X-Men in it, you know? So I don't know. They could have even thrown more in there if they wanted to, but like they needed some more like original characters, I think, to show up. And I mean, dude, it was so much fun though. We're gonna sit here and complain about it, but it was still like extremely enjoyable. You know, I was laughing at a lot of the jokes, even though I was groaning at like a lot of them. Also, I thought Hugh Jackman was like awesome. I don't know. This like might have been like my favorite version of him we've seen. He was just
really.
Like, great.
I thought he was intolerable. All
Oh
he
gosh,
could do was just angry and I don't want to talk about it and brooding. And my favorite thing about Wolverine in the comics is how nuanced of a character he is. Like, he's a really good surrogate father to young women, and he's like a noble samurai guy, and he, you know, has also been this like, you know, weapon of destruction for, you know, governments, and he's got this tortured past, but also he loves to just crack open a beer with Colossus and Nightcrawler and be their buddy. And it's like, you never see some of those sides of him. And when they were
this
visiting...
is also a Logan that's like, I mean, I think his like motivation for why he's just like a depressed drunk is not very good. You know, they should have done the old man Logan, where if he's really upset about something and sees it all as his fault, they should show it, that like it's because he killed all the X-Men unknowingly, like they did with Professor X when they did Logan. So, but to just have him be like, I was off getting drunk and the humans attacked and killed everyone. Well,
I don't believe that. No.
Yeah, that first of all, immediately when he says that, it's like the rest of the X-Men couldn't stop a bunch of humans. Like, and dude, if you're out getting drunk, that's like not that big of a thing, you know?
It's just another nail in the coffin of like disrespect that these movies have had for every X-Men that's not him. You know something else I realized about this movie that was kind of weird? I was gonna say it would have worked so much better in like 2017 or 2018, coming right off the heels of the first Deadpool and Logan. Like, that would have been when people wanted this movie. But then I started thinking about narratively, that's also when it would have lined up. Like, if this had been Deadpool 2, it would have made sense that Vanessa's alive without him having to like go back in the post-credit scenes of real Deadpool 2 and save her again.
Okay,
it would make sense that Cable and Domino aren't in this one, because after Deadpool 2, it feels like a glaring omission that they're just not even mentioned in this movie.
Yeah.
I am going to choose to believe from now on that this was Deadpool 2, and Deadpool 2 takes place after the events of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Well, it doesn't, because when he gets to the TVA, he's like, oh, is this because I went back in time and did all that stuff? And they're like, no, we don't care about that. This is because Logan died as the anchor being.
They should have said yes.
Biggest. I know, dude. That is such an easy and good plot that can seamlessly bring him into the MCU that we're learning about. Is like, yeah, the TVA is upset with him because they're trying to get him because he time traveled. And it's just a waste and it's because they want to set up this anchor being story
it was like
that
they're
going to continue. Yeah.
They felt like they couldn't do the thing that made sense because everyone would see that coming. I hate it.
Yeah. And probably the other big weakness is I don't think Deadpool's characterization would really care about being an Avenger at all. I don't think he would travel to Happy Hogan and be like, please, I need to be an Avenger for my girlfriend. Like,
it would be more fun.
Nothing like him at all.
It would be more fun if he made fun of the Avengers and called them nerds and cops.
Yeah.
And
instead
also,
of like loving, it would make more sense than that.
Once again, we've already seen him like stick his nose up in that way about becoming an X-Men, but the Avengers, they're better. They're different. No. You. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
X-Men at worst are equal to the Avengers, and if you ask me, that's like they can take on bigger threats than the Avengers.
They couldn't even stop a house full of humans.
Disrespectful.
All right, well, I still had a lot of fun with it, even though like storyline, you know, it definitely left some stuff to be desired, but Deadpool and Nice Pool, that was just hilarious. Every time Ryan Reynolds' Canadian ass was on TV.
The healing factor bit was kind of, I mean, it was sad, but it was funny. Gambit's dialect
obviously,
coach
let's
being the
just
minions.
talk about all of the cameos. Yeah. The Gambit cameo was awesome, and I was like waiting for him to like mention his voice because I like couldn't understand it when he started, and I was like, this is hilarious.
That was the funniest joke Deadpool made the whole movie. Also, I realized if this movie had come out a year later, or if X-Men 97 had come out a year earlier, there's not a chance in hell they wouldn't have done a reshoot to have Gambit make the big sacrifice and say, "The name's Gambit. Remember it."
Or they would at least have him say like Mon Ami or something.
Well, they already know he would have done that, but I think remember it should moving forward always be like Gambit's
thing.
Big emotional catchphrase, yeah. Because it resonates so much more now.
Yeah, he was pretty good. You know, I really liked Alexa, or what's her name? Electra.
Yeah.
I've never even seen that movie, but she showed up and I was like, oh, that's just fun right there. And then Blade showed up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is pretty good.
My theater lost it for Blade. People went nuts.
Oh, so did mine.
100% audience participation. You love to see it.
Yep. Those were good. Those were good cameos that I'm really glad I didn't follow the trailers at all, and I didn't know any of them were coming. I didn't know X-23 was coming back. You know, of course, the second you hear Chris Evans' voice, I mean, I knew that was Chris Evans. Before Deadpool knew that was Chris Evans, I was like, oh my God, he's Johnny Storm. I mean, that's obvious. He's not coming back as Captain America yet.
I didn't think he was going to be Captain America, but I didn't fully know if he was Johnny Storm. I thought there was a chance it's just going to be actor Chris Evans, or
that'd be funny.
He would be like U.S. agent or some like dorky, crappy Captain America.
It's a travesty how easily he got beaten up by Pyro. I mean, he just like used his flame powers. Pyro sucked it all, and then he just like fell and hit his head on a billboard.
It was like
embarrassing.
That's how it should go, though, because Pyro can't create flames, but he can manipulate them. And
I don't care. Pyro that we've seen is like a teenager in the X-Men, and Johnny Storm is a full-fledged superhero, member of the Fantastic Four.
I get it. But it's like a perfect. I'm not saying Pyro is like a great supervillain or whatever, but his powers are like exactly what you would want to go up against Johnny Storm. It'd be like if there was a supervillain whose only power was to dissolve spider webbing, like before it even touches anything. They would be so great against Spider-Man, and they'd not really be a great supervillain. It'd be a good match, you know?
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I'm more okay with it.
Daphne Keane returning as Laura Kinney was great. She needs to be like a big part of the MCU moving forward.
She
honestly,
was great.
I would be fine if she was just the MCU Wolverine, but I know they're not going to do that.
I think here's my prediction. Get your special sock out, nerds. I think Daniel Radcliffe is going to come in and be Wolverine, and I think that's why he wasn't in the montage. Because if Daniel Radcliffe was not going to be in the MCU, why would they not put him in that montage where they're going through everyone? Like, hasn't he been the name that everyone's been saying? I'd never even heard about Henry Cavill being like a Wolverine guy, but I've heard Daniel Radcliffe a million times.
It's funny, as a big Captain Britain fan, I always hear people say Henry Cavill would play Captain Britain. I'm like, you don't even know Captain Britain. And then people they'll be like, I think it's weird to have a nationalist hero for Britain and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, he's not Captain America for Great Britain. That's just a name. Like, he's more of a multiversal being or whatever. But I also didn't think Henry Cavill as Wolverine was something people were just clamoring for.
Yeah.
I could see Daniel Radcliffe doing it. I'd be fine with that. I just don't want another 20 years of Hugh Jackman being the end all be all of the mutant side of these movies.
I wouldn't mind it. I like him.
Nothing against him personally. I just don't ever need to see him do that again for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
Let the man make his musicals, John. He just wants to sing.
That's true. The scene at the end of them Guardians of the Galaxy saving the day by joining hands together. What'd you think? I know it's bad, but I loved it. And I loved Madonna like a prayer. I just spoiler alert, the jam of the week might be Madonna like a prayer.
That's a good one. I think it's very funny how all the far right alpha male types were like, finally, they made a movie that didn't push any race or gender politics onto us. There is no LGBT issues as far as I could see. and you've got a literal like bisexual superhero crushing on the other character the whole movie, and then it ends with them holding hands to a Madonna song.
I mean,
No
dude,
gay
if people say that there's like no gay subtext, then there's outwardly gay text all over the movie. At the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where Deadpool meets the TVA agents, and the conversation goes on for way too long about Deadpool just like talking about going and getting pounded by all of these guys. It's just like absurd.
At one point, doesn't he say something like, well, I know my way around a strap? Or he makes some like reference to...
Dude, he makes like a million of them. Okay, so what should we rate this Deadpool and Wolverine movie? Out of Wolverine,
out of 6 claws.
Okay. I was gonna say out of different versions of Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Can I say what I did like?
Yes.
My favorite part.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Because it hasn't come up organically. When he was going through the montage of like checking out all these other universes, Wolverine.
Oh, I figured you would like this a lot because you'd get every single reference, and
I did. Yeah, there were some deep comic references. We got the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, which I screamed for because I did not expect that.
Is that when he's on the cross?
No. So the Age of Apocalypse one is missing a hand, and he's wearing like that ridiculous face paint.
Well, he has a name. Oh, is he Mr. Claw or no? That's
he's
a different one.
I think he's Weapon X.
Patch
was one. That's when he's wearing the suit and the eye patch.
Yeah.
I wrote a Patch scene for the script, the thing that you read.
Did you?
I assumed, because I saw Patch in the trailers, and I assumed that was going to be the main Wolverine we were seeing. And I thought, oh, he's like putting on a disguise or something to infiltrate a party or something. No, it was just that one little cameo. The Wolverine getting crucified on the cross is a very famous like cover, and it's a scene in the Outback era of the X-Men. That's where he meets Jubilee. I kind of liked that, but also I'm a little over the getting crucified on the X thing, because that's also a thing recently in the comics, and it was in the cartoon with Magneto. But whatever, it was kind of cool. Just some good little Easter eggs.
Yeah. I kind of got some of those. I was like, oh, I recognize that person. Like Patch, I was like, oh, I've seen that before.
For a split second, I wondered if we were going to get the Ultimate Universe Logan, and he would be like, we were going to
see him in Peter Parker's body.
Yeah,
making out with Mary Jane,
hitting on a teenager. No, they didn't go there.
Okay, so out of 10 multiversal Wolverines, how many are you giving this movie?
A resounding 5.
Tough critic, man. I'm going to give this one a 7. Standard, fun movie. The plot didn't make much sense, but you kind of know what you're getting at a certain point when you go and see a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Like,
I think my biggest fear of it is, how is this going to inform what Marvel puts into the movies moving forward? Because I could see this making them a ton of money, and instead of their lesson being people just like Deadpool and Wolverine, the lesson they take away from it being, oh, they want this kind of cheap humor and nostalgia.
Well, dude, that's what like every MCU movie's been since Spider-Man No Way Home. It's just like, oh, let's just put in cameos for the sake of putting in cameos and hope that everybody goes and sees the movies. And like, I do think the cameos in this were better than Doctor Strange 100%. But the best part of this movie was Deadpool and Wolverine just hanging out, being together on screen together. So if you go into it, you're going to a Deadpool and Wolverine movie hoping that you see some fun between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. You'll be relatively happy leaving the theater, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it speeds along the process of them making like any kind of thoughtful or nuanced or movies of like different genres or sensibilities. I don't think it helps that cause that I've felt they desperately needed for a long time.
Well, here's a segue. Speaking of potential future movies, you want to talk about the other big news of the week?
Oh my God. So, okay. I hate to disappoint anyone who heard the intro and thought John had been cast as Doctor Doom for the MCU. There was actually a more ridiculous choice that they somehow found. Robert Downey Jr. is coming back. What do we think of that?
Not only that, the Russos are coming back also.
Yeah. Which arguably I think matters more.
Yeah. Okay, so I saw this. I saw a clip of it. I was scrolling YouTube Shorts.
The whole world saw this. It
all
was
of a
such
sudden,
a dramatic announcement.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like reading it. And as I'm reading it and saying it, my head is going, gosh, I don't know if this is going to really work. This seems kind of like a stunt. But my face is contorting into the biggest smile that's come across it watching the MCU in years, seeing Tony Stark rip off the Doctor Doom mask. I don't care how bad I don't care how desperate they are and how stupid this is. There is not an announcement that could have made me care more about the MCU than saying Robert Downey Jr. is coming back and he's playing Doctor Doom. I love it. I can't wait. And the fact that the Russos are coming back also is equally awesome to me. No, it's not equally awesome. It's less awesome, but it's still awesome. Put me on the books, Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. This is going to be sick.
All right. Well, I kind of had a feeling when it got announced. I was like, John is the exact demographic that this was made for.
You know what's funny? If they said Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Iron Man, I would have groaned and been like, "Oh, this isn't going to be good," you know. But I don't know, something about this, it's like really tickling me in a way that I just like.
I just feel like it so clearly doesn't have like any intentional plan behind it. It's like the biggest headline grabbing pivot from Kang they could think of on short notice, and it's just gonna blow up. Aside from him not being right for the role, and aside from he's obviously forever going to be tied to Iron Man, so they almost have to lean into, Doom is a Tony Stark.
I think it's gonna have to be something like that. I did see a comic. It was a What If. And in this What If, instead of Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom going to college together, Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom go to college together. And Victor Von Doom ends up creating a machine that switches their brains into each other's bodies. So Victor Von Doom is literally in Tony Stark's body. He runs Stark Enterprises, ever since college, right? And Tony Stark doesn't remember any of that. He just thinks he got into an accident in college and kind of lost all of his memories as Victor Von Doom. And I was listening to that comic being read through, kind of like how we do with the Ultimate Spider-Mans, and I was like, man, this sounds good. I'm digging this.
Yeah, that has become famous in recent days because people are going to these kind of sites and Wikipedia. Once it gets dug up by one YouTuber, then everyone's talking about it like it was some seminal comic run that we all remember and love.
When it was the most random What If comic ever.
Yeah, it's not a thought that's in most people's minds, when you read the comics.
But that is to say, they can create a story that works here. They can create a story where Tony Stark goes down a series of events and becomes a Victor Von Doom type of ruler of another country, and he's like wants to save the world at all costs, because that's pretty close to Tony Stark in the Avengers. He just happens to have like other heroes pulling him back when they need to, you know? So I think it makes sense. I like it.
Okay.
And I know Victor Von Doom is his own character, and he's not Tony Stark. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. He's not. He's a different character. But, you know, oh well.
That's the biggest problem here. I actually do think there's a path for there to be a story told. The problem is that precludes you from ever telling a proper Victor Von Doom story. So I'm trying to see the logic in what they're doing, and I came up with this. So the point of Doctor Doom in the Marvel Comics universe, there's a guy, Douglas Wolk, who read every single Marvel comic ever published. It took him years. He wrote a book on it. His theory of the case is that Doctor Doom is the main character of the Marvel universe, right? And Doom is the main character of the 2015 Secret Wars. He becomes like the God King of all eternity.
Wow, so he could be like the anchor being or something.
One might say. The thing is, Doom has always been the foil in the comics to Reed Richards. And Reed Richards, his role in the universe is like, he is the original protagonist. Like, Fantastic Four was the first Marvel superhero comic ever made. He's like the leader of them. He's the equal opposite genius of like Doom. In the movies, that role is already taken by Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, right? So if you're, instead of looking at it and saying literally this is what the source material says, is that Doom and Reed are arch nemesis, you look at why are they arch nemesis, and you
instead you say, oh, it's actually Tony that's the main universe good guy, and he's the main universe bad guy.
Yeah, that's where they lose me, because I don't like the idea that Doom is literally Reed. Sometimes they've done that.
Have they? Well, then they might be going into like type of stories like that, just completely replacing like Reed with Tony.
That's what's going on right now in the current Ultimate Universe, is like Reed Richards is Doom. And I don't know where they're quite going with that yet, but it's an interesting concept. Maybe
this Doom will, I don't know. Maybe they're going to use some of this like the Maker storyline that's currently coming out. You know, and kind of putting Tony in that role as Victor Von Doom instead of the Maker.
I don't know. It's so much to, but then it's like
I just think if they've got good writers and a good director and good actors, you know, the MCU hasn't sucked recently because they lost Robert Downey Jr. and Captain America, and it has been bad because the writing has been bad, the stories aren't good, you know, so. You get a good writing team back, which maybe they'll get like Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They worked with the Russos before. And you get good directors back and you get good actors back. Dude, I'm very confident they will make an awesome movie. It just might not be the Victor Von Doom that, you know, you love.
Dude, I'm scared, boss, because the Victor Von Doom that I love should be like this generation's Darth Vader. Okay? And they're slowly using all of the good Fantastic Four beats for other stuff. Like, my criticism of Ant-Man Quantumania when it came out was, this is basically the negative zone that you're stealing. It's not going to hit the same if you ever do it in a Fantastic Four movie, because you already did it in Ant-Man, and you used MODOK, who now will never be like cool or scary or anything. And then if you say, well, there's no Victor Von Doom, Doom is just an Iron Man variant and is tied to Iron Man. And also Reed Richards is going to be the Maker, so there's not like a good Reed Richards that we can follow as well.
Well, we don't know that's...
I know, but there's a path to where they just dry up that well before they ever get to pull from it.
Yeah. Well... Maybe something that you are more excited for. I know the Fantastic Four trailer also came out, and that's getting like a ton of praise. It got released at Comic-Con, so you can now find people like going through the trailer. I don't think you can watch it yet because it wasn't like recorded in there, but you can figure out like, oh, this is what the trailer's for. And, you know, I think they kind of show like some parts of like Galactus, like looking in a window from as like a giant, and it seems like it's pretty good. You know, they've got a good Fantastic Four there. He's like a science teacher, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, who has a TV show, and he's called like Mr. Fantastic. And then they go off into space, and you know something happens, so they become the Fantastic Four. So I don't know. It seems like, you know, should be fun. Maybe they're back. It seems to me like the MCU is actually, you know, coming back here. I'm excited for the Fantastic Four movie. I'm psyched for Doomsday and Secret Wars. I'm so glad that it's like 2 years away, because lately they announce movies, they don't come out for like 7 years. So, you know, I'm glad that they announced this, and we really should be getting hit with some like good movies that drive the overarching plot forward, which it seems like we haven't gotten in forever.
If there is an overarching plot.
Yeah.
I'll say this. If they do the Fantastic Four and this next Spider-Man movie and these 2 Avengers movies wrong, I'm going to be so out. If they do the X-Men wrong, I'm like calling for Kevin Feige's job. Hell, I'm like showing up unannounced and auditioning for it. Because I had a plan on how Doom should have been in the MCU, and it kind of does tie back to like Iron Man. Like, now that you've set up Iron Man as like the world's savior, introduce someone who's like a genius, but for the wrong reasons, and then also uses like magic. So they're like have magic and technology working together, sees themselves as the next Tony Stark in terms of like saving the world, is super rich, goes out, buys his like Mark I suit mask. Let the original Iron Man mask from the first movie be Doom's faceplate, and then do like the original Jack Kirby idea of Doctor Doom, that he tells everyone he's horribly deformed, but really he's just so vain. He's hiding up like one little scar.
Huh.
And make him this just like...
That sounds like a good movie.
Make him just like this tortured like genius who's also kind of unstable. Make him like Kylo Ren, but without being so whiny.
Yeah. Here's one thing. Probably the only thing that I will be unhappy about in the Tony Stark Doctor Doom casting is if they just put him in a mask, and they just put him in a mask. Because that's what I'm seeing people be like, well, theoretically, right, people might not even know that it looks like Tony Stark because Doctor Doom's always in a mask, so he could be, you know, no, it might not even have to come up that it looks like Tony. And it's like, that would be so stupid if you cast Tony Stark in the role and you don't mention one time why they look exactly the same. Like that would be bad.
It's a Chekhov's gun. You can't cast Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom to not eventually reveal Robert Downey Jr.'s face and everyone recognize it.
You almost can't even cast it and be like, no, this is a different character. You have to make him a variant of Tony Stark.
Which I think is what they're doing, which is, it just bums me out, man.
Yeah.
I could even see them going so far as like his whole armor is just Iron Man armor with a different mask with a green robe over it. And at some point he just drops the green robe and people are like, my God, that's Iron Man.
Yeah, it probably will. If I were at Comic-Con for that announcement and that happened, I'd have lost my mind. Okay. That would be the most fun thing to like ever experience, because dude, the only thing I wish is he's got to be a better actor. You know, these actors, they need more stage presence. He needed to take a couple extra beats before he ripped that mask off. Let the tension build. Let everyone like sit there and wonder who is about to take this mask off. But he just does it right away. I'm like, oh man, you blew it kind of.
The coolest thing they could have done in that moment is MF Doom faked his own death a couple years ago. He's real. He's alive. He rips off the mask. It's MF Doom. He's also doing the soundtrack for the next 2 Marvel movies.
Who is this? I don't know who this is.
MF Doom, he's like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Like, he's thought of as like one of the most talented rappers of all time. So
that's who they should have gotten.
But his whole bit is Doctor Doom. He has an album called Doomsday. He hid his face from the world. He would like perform in a Doctor Doom mask.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
He had a video of like assassinating Kanye West as if he's like a presidential campaign guy. Like you just snipe him from afar. He was pretty awesome, but he died a couple years ago, and people didn't even find out about it until like a year after his death because he was so secretive. Like, his family just buried him, and no one heard that MF Doom was dead. Huh. So it would have been funny if like Marvel had been behind that and
they were faking it.
Yes,
that would have been funny. Zach, we're running pretty long here.
We are. This is.
Do you have anything else on Robert Downey Jr. or Deadpool or anything else?
I don't on those things. I had one. Do you have somewhere you got to be?
No, not for a while. I'm playing tennis in an hour, but we got plenty. We got plenty of time.
All right, sounds good.
We won't cut it short on the listeners.
All right, I had this already, like, queued up to go. I took some notes. So, I'm becoming a weeb. I'm becoming an anime guy, John.
Yep, I do.
I got there's been a lot of anime that I missed, I got to catch up on stuff. So, have you ever heard of Neon Genesis Evangelion?
No, of course I haven't heard of the things that you asked me about.
It's like one of the most famous animes. It came out in like 1995, and it was like a hallmark of the genre, okay? It's like a Gundam show, big robots that people get in and pilot and fight monsters, right?
Okay.
I wanted to watch it because it sounds pretty good, and I've heard good things about it from people I trust. And I'm like 7 episodes in, and I'm absolutely hooked. And I started thinking, what is it about this show that just like has got me so thoroughly? And then I started taking notes. Tell me where this sounds familiar from.
Okay.
It's got an ordinary teenage protagonist suddenly given great responsibility. A whole host of cool and interesting female side characters. School drama.
Wow.
He always loses to the bad guy at first, then comes back and figures out how to beat them. And a Nick Fury type character who's always barking out orders from a command center.
This is Phineas and Ferb.
Another great show.
So this is is it? Wow. So are they copying off Spider-Man?
This came, who's to say? But this came before Ultimate Spider-Man for sure. Yeah,
pretty
it's just
good.
A really good show. Can't wait to watch some more today.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
You got anything?
Was that it?
Yeah. Do we want to do trivia, or are we going to cut that?
Well, we obviously are going to do Spider-Man trivia.
All right,
and then the jam of the week.
Let's do it.
And then we're out of here like last year.
All right. You ready?
Yes.
Who was the first supervillain Spider-Man faced in the comics?
Didn't we already do this one?
No, they had another question that was stupider. That was like, who's his first major nemesis? Yeah. First supervillain he ever fought.
He fought in the comics.
I've read this issue, and I wouldn't have gotten this. It's the Chameleon.
Oh, okay. 0 for 1. Wow, I'm proud of myself for. I still guessed a animal.
And the Vulture was one of the early ones. That's like a very good guess.
Yeah.
All right. True or false? Venom was created to get Spider-Man to change costumes.
I am gonna say true. That sounds like something that might actually happen.
Yeah. So it says Venom's creator, Todd McFarlane, called the genesis of the character a complete and utter happy accident. When he started working on Spider-Man, the hero was wearing a black costume. McFarlane hated it and wanted Spidey back in his iconic red and blue. He turned the black suit into a symbiotic alien that became its own entity when Spider-Man rejected it.
So he was already in the black suit?
Yeah. He got the black suit in Secret Wars by Jim Shooter.
And that must be... Oh my gosh. And then Jim Shooter wrote the gambling football issue.
Yep.
And that's why he's in the black suit in that.
Yeah. Hot take.
Why did he get a black suit in Secret Wars?
Just cool new threads, man. It's not your father's Spider-Man anymore. This guy's different. He wears black.
Jim Shooter.
That was one of his better calls.
Black things are cool, just in general. My golf clubs are all black. They look sweet.
What'd you expect, John? Yellow spandex?
Yeah.
All right. Who killed Peter Parker's Uncle Ben?
Just like a guy robbing a convenience store. Should I know this guy's name? Who kills Uncle Ben?
It says, this is the biggest trick question ever. It says a random street criminal, and then it has a long-ass paragraph.
I got it! That's exactly what I said.
It has a long paragraph, and then it says, but in the 2007 film Spider-Man 3, it's revealed that it was actually Flint Marko, the Sandman. And I'm like, okay, that's a different question.
Oh, that's right.
That's who did it in the 2007 movie. You got it right. It's just...
He doesn't even kill him. He's just working with the guy, right? I think it's still the other guy that shoots him.
No, it's the other way around. The guy that Peter accidentally killed was just helping him.
Flint Marko was the guy that shot him?
He was the trigger man, yeah, in that movie.
Wow.
But I like that it's not some supervillain. It's just a random act of violence.
Yep. Just like Bruce Wayne's parents. And then they try to retcon that and turn it into the Joker.
Yeah, because of course they always do that.
All right, jam of the week.
Okay.
I've got mine.
You've got yours.
It's Madonna, Like a Prayer. I've listened to it 1,000 times this week. It's such a jam.
So that's like maybe the only Madonna song I know, maybe like 2 or 3 others. When we were in New York earlier this year.
And Madonna's gotten some love this issue also, because when we were talking about Quentin Tarantino movies, you mentioned people sitting around the table talking about Madonna.
You know what? This episode goes out to Madonna. Hope she's having a great day.
So do I.
When we were in New York in January, I was like, just kind of looking for like things to do. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool to go to like Madison Square Garden. What's happening there that weekend? And Madonna was having her residency there. And I was like, are there like any cheap nosebleed tickets to see Madonna? Because I would do that just to say I did, just to visit the garden. You know, I'll hear Like a Prayer and that'll be fun. The cheapest tickets were like $350. And I was like, no, thank you.
Too much to see Madonna when you don't know anything about her.
Yep. That was, yeah. That was the story of a show that I almost went to. I'm sure I would have gotten some crazy pit injuries at Madonna.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a jam. This came up on my shuffle. I hadn't thought about this band or song in a long time. And then I heard it this week and I was like, that's a song for John. He's going to like that. It's She's Kerosene by The Interrupters, one of the better ska bands of like recent years.
Oh, a ska song.
You're going to like this one.
Okay, how much cheese is coming out of those mozzarella sticks, Zach?
Oh man,
on a scale of still cold on the inside to just bursting at the seams, there's cheese all over the plate.
Okay, I don't want to oversell it because my biggest problem with the Interrupters as a ska band is they don't have a horn section, but they definitely do the thing with their guitars. So I'm going to say this is a 3.5 out of 5 on the mozzarella stick scale of ska.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I like that. That's a good one.
It's just a fun song, John. It's a bop, and it reminds me of seeing them in 2018 at Warped Tour and it being 100 degrees and their singer Amy Interrupter giving me a popsicle.
Nice. Dude, you're always doing fun things with the bands. All right. Is that it?
I think that's it. 2.5 hours later.
Yep. One other small piece here for Zach. I did buy, after the Josh Cribbs video, I did buy an autographed Josh Cribbs jersey. I found one.
Nice.
Yeah, I was hoping it'd get delivered here before we recorded, but it didn't. So
who gets that? Like whoever's the most recent winner of the league?
Well, I think that is how I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to tell anyone in the league about it. And when everyone shows up to draft, I'm going to be like rocking it. And then I think, yeah, it goes to whoever is the most recent winner.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping now you just keep winning the league and none of these other guys get to see it.
I hope that also.
That's cool.
Our league has 14 people in it, and I'm pretty sure 11 of them. We have been a league for 11 years, and there have been 11 new winners in the league.
Wow, that's pretty balanced.
So every year the chances get smaller and smaller that, or you could say bigger and bigger, that there's going to be the first repeat winner. And I'll be pretty upset if that's not me. But we've got 3 other people that still haven't won.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to get some kind of league that's like for money or like a cool prize at the end that everyone keeps up with every year. I always do free leagues with idiots.
Well,
this
was actually a pretty good segue, because I texted Zach earlier this week and I said we should do a listener fantasy football league. So, I mean, I would play in that, Zach. I'm sure you would also, you know. So I think if anybody is still listening and they're interested in playing some fantasy football this year, I would say definitely send us a comment or send us your email. And I don't mind setting that up if we can get, you know, between 10 and 14 people who want to play, or maybe there will be more and we can do multiple leagues. So, you know,
I would definitely be down. I think the clock is against us because it's already August.
If you want to play, you send us a comment quickly.
Yeah, be fast with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be down.
Okay. All right. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Nice.
They can't say we didn't talk about Spider-Man on this one.
They really can't. Thank you to Ian Hickey for our music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving us a review or a comment or telling a friend about us. You can find us, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. And you can come and chat with us and leave us a comment on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast. See you next week.
See ya.